Today is May 19th, 2008. I am Cassie Potasic, and it is a pleasure to conduct this interview for the Dakota Memories Oral History Project in Ashley, North Dakota. Can you please tell me your full name, including your maiden name?
Alvina, Nitschke, Schlenker.
Do you have a middle name?
No, I don't.
Can you please share some of your earliest memories with us?
Earliest memories when I was little. Well, some of the memories we had help with the chores, and like when in the barn we had to feed the calves. That was something that, as kids could do. And the chickens, they were always important, and had to help with the separating, and then when in the house when the food was prepared, we kind of had to help along sometimes too. And, that was when we were, starting to get a little bigger, I suppose. Real little, I can't remember many memories, so.
Right. Did your family have a garden?
Yes, always. Yeah, we had always garden stuff in the summer to eat, They didn't do that much canning in those days, It just used up what they had, and in the wintertime they ate more stuff made out of dough, Well, there was cabbage. That's cabbage from the garden. That they used to make sauerkraut.
Do you remember how they made sauerkraut?
Yeah. They had a cutter some people had a cutter, but I don't know if we did, sliced it by hand, and then they put it in a barrel, and pressed it down and put I don't think they put much in it, just a little bit of spice, and then put a board on top and a rock so it would be tight. So that's how it got sour. And then after it got sour, they put it in jars, to keep. And they always made a big, container full. Like they had those crocks, and those where they put them in.
Right. Did you have to help out a lot inside the house?
Yeah, cleaning. Yeah. And peel potatoes and things like that. And get you'd have to bring wood in, or the pigs would eat the corn cobs, the corn off, and then we'd bring the cob in to burn up in the stove, for heating, and then you had to bring in the wintertime you brought in coal, and we had to help along with that a lot.
Right.
Each one had their chores, the kids.
And what were your chores?
Well, see, like mine was one of the chickens was always mine. Well, and then milking too. And
So, which chores did you like doing?
well, I liked the chickens, and I liked the gardening too.
Which ones did you not like doing?
Well, maybe the milking, not so much, but I had to milk anyway, I liked it or not.
Right.
And feeding the calves, I kind of enjoyed that.
Were there differences between summer and winter chores?
Oh, yeah. Well, the winter it was cold, and you had to dress up, and maybe didn't always have to help along as much in the wintertime, because I mostly do it in the house, whatever we could help.
Can you describe a typical winter for us?
Oh, they were tough winters, yeah. A lot of snow and cold. I know one time my dad would take us to school with the horses, and then one time a snowstorm came up fast, and the teacher wrote a note that we went along with somebody else, and Dad didn't read that note, and he went to a different farm and came back, and we weren't there. Then he went to that other farm. They told him where to, and on the way home he got stuck with the horses, but he made it. The horses led him home. See, those horses were smart in those days. They led him home. Otherwise, he wouldn't have made it with us in the wagon or sled. My mother was worried already. So she started chores already before Dad came home. And so those were tough winters. Sometimes the snowstorms came up fast, that you really didn't know. And so that was hard too, with the chores, the cattle and things. And
Right. Can you describe a typical spring for us?
oh, and that was nice when it got spring, yeah. Melted and it was nice out. We could play outside then. And, yeah, and yeah, it was fun. I always had to we had turkeys too in the spring. They would lay their eggs in the hay mow and I had to go and find the eggs. And that was in the spring. And when the little turkeys came, you had to watch them and feed them. And
What other animals did you have on your farm?
well, chickens and turkeys and, then the little calves. And my dad had a few goats too, I think. He even butchered them sometimes. I didn't like it, but
Did you have horses?
yeah, horses, yeah, and cows. And
Did you ever go riding?
no, not much me. My sister did.
Is there anything else you remember about spring?
Well, you started to put out the garden and well, Dad, he was in the field. Once we could do a little more, we had to help along. It was nice when it got spring because winter was always tough. Yeah.
Right. Can you describe a little bit about summer for us?
Yeah, well, it was hot, and then there was no air conditioning, and it got hot in the house. You had to, try and get along without, having coolness. You had to sleep where it was warm, and the flies were bad too sometimes. If you got flies in the house, you would dish towels and chase them out in the house by the dish towel.
How did you try to keep the house cool?
They couldn't. It's just, I don't think they even had fans, not that I remember. It just opened the doors and windows, and that's how they kept it cool. Well, it wasn't cool, but anyway, it helped. Mm-hmm.
Right. And then can you describe a typical fall for us?
Well, that was when school started. Then we were excited to get back to school. And, when we came home from school, we had to help with the chores. And I even had to help. Well, that was after I was done with school. Then had to help my dad pick the corn cobs off the stalks. But I was always a little slower. I couldn't do it as fast as he could.
So you had to help outside and inside
Yeah.
with the chores?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did boys ever have to help inside the house?
No, we only had one boy then. That was, he was, he didn't have to help inside. He was mostly outside. Mm-hmm.
Which season was your favorite season?
Oh, summer. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why was it your favorite?
Well, you could do things outside, and even though there was times when you could get 4th of July meant a lot, you got to go someplace. But you had to hoe the potatoes first before you got to go to the 4th celebration.
Can you describe a 4th of July celebration?
Yeah, they had in town here, they had a lot of people always in and had fireworks in the evenings and parade and that was fun for us to go to that, and then you got treats, like ice cream, which you didn't get that often, and you could go and have ice cream cone, and it was cheap.
Did you ever make your own ice cream?
Yeah, we did, but not in the summertime. Yeah, we did that a lot.
Do you remember how?
Yeah, a gallon container, where you bought syrup in, you put that in and put it in a pail with ice around it, and you'd kept turning it back and forth, and then you'd open it once in a while, see if it's starting to freeze. You stirred it up again, and Then when it was frozen, you set it outside in the snow, so it would keep frozen. That was good. Made our own homemade chocolate.
Were there any other things that your family made for themselves? Any food things?
Oh yeah, the butchering when they made sausage and things, and the cooking. Well, they would always in the fall they would go to the column mill. That they had a mill where they milled flour, and then they would always buy some for the winter in the fall, and they even got some oatmeal free, that you could. Then they had oatmeal over the winter and flour all. That didn't buy any in between, so that was something they did in the fall.
What was your family's attitude towards alcohol?
Well, my dad always had something that he made homemade wine, and yeah.
Do you remember how he made it?
Not really. I think they had grapes, but I don't know where they bought those blue grapes in the fall. I think that's how they made it. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did your family ever make their own beer?
Yeah, I did. I had to do it when I was older. I had to make it. Root beer.
Do you remember how?
Well, I think for the beer you had a yeast, and you could buy something that would go in there, and we put it in one of them crocks too, and I don't quite remember what they put water in it then and had it leave it set a few days so it would get ready, and then you bottled it. And if you bottled it too quick, then it was wild when you opened the bottle. You had to wait till it was just right. So.
All right. Did they drink this when they were entertaining guests?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you have a lot of people come over and visit when you were growing up?
Yeah, a lot of the uncles and aunts, they came, and you didn't know when they were coming. There was no telephone. When the dog barked, then you had company.
So what did the adults do when people would come visiting?
They would just visit. Yeah. I think they'd had a few jokes too, I think, sometimes, where we weren't supposed to know that we would be in the other room playing.
Right. Did you have lots of people come over for holidays?
Well, the holidays, it was kind of like too, I think they went to their parents' house too for holidays, but they didn't always all come because they would have been too many. They stopped at my grandpa's house when they came home from church sometimes for holidays and brought them something.
Right. What was your favorite holiday?
Well, Christmas, I think.
Can you tell me about Christmas?
Yeah, well, they would buy, the peanuts and the nuts, and they buy it ahead of time. That was always a big deal. We didn't get it during the year. That was for Christmas. And my mother would make lots of cookies and can't think of it right now. What else we did for Christmas?
Did you have school or church programs?
Yeah, church program, that was always important, very important. Yeah, and there were school programs too, where we put on skits and plays together. The kids had to be in. Then that was always, the schoolhouse was always full on a night like that.
Did you have a Christmas tree?
Not always, No. But we got gifts though. We got one gift, I think, something. And then from the grandparents, you either got candy or something.
Do you remember any of the gifts you received?
Well, a doll. I know me and my sister each got a doll, but at the next year I can't remember what we got the next year. Well, a dress, I think that was part of the gift, yeah. You didn't always get gifts, I think.
Okay. Is there anything else you remember about Christmas?
Well, I told you that earlier, that you went with the sled to church, and so you want me to repeat that?
Sure.
Yeah, he would, have a sled and would make a bed in the bottom for us kids to lay in, and then drove to church with a sled with the horses, and there was a big lake that was frozen. He drove over the lake, and in church there he had to put the horses in the barn, and then had a nice program. There they always had a Christmas tree, and with the lights that are not the electric ones, the other ones that you light at the candle, and that was all. And then we had to say our Christmas pieces. That was always nice programs. Yeah. We had to memorize our pieces and a lot of times we were scared to say them, but.
Do you remember any of them that you had to memorize?
Yeah, we had. I think I I'll have one that I remember, a short one.
Do you want to say it for us?
Christkindli, komm, mach mich fromm, dass ich in der Himmel komm. And then there was a song too, Alle Jahre wieder. No, I can't remember that part. No, that's about all.
Right. Did your family celebrate Easter?
Yeah, we coloured eggs and always got ready for Easter too, because there we had Good Friday as a holiday, and that was always a big thing. They coloured a lot of eggs for Easter. Eat a lot of them too then. And usually there was some company that came on Easter. Didn't always know who would come, I think, because.
Did your family prepare any special foods for these holidays?
Yeah, I think my mother made, can't remember, that she made ahead of time, I think. It was something like the kuchen that she made, but then there was another thing that she made. I can't remember what that was called. It was a round thing that she made. It was kind of made out of that, kind of like caramel roll or something like that. She made that for Easter, yeah.
What were some of your favorite foods that your mother made?
Well, there was a lot of good ones, like the dough foods, like vegetable soup and kuchen, yeah.
Did you have any least favorite foods?
Well, that goat my dad butchered, that was my least favorite. But my sister liked it. I didn't care much for it. I ate a little bit,
All right. We already talked a little bit about the 4th of July. Were there any other holidays that your family celebrated?
No, I don't think so. That was kind of a big thing, the 4th of July. Otherwise, there wasn't that much, except like some of the church things that went on, like Confirmation and Mission Fest.
Can you tell us about Mission Fest?
Yeah, that was always you had a guest speaker, and then you had a morning service, and then you had people invited, the people that were visitors and the pastors. My folks always invited some for a noon meal, and then there was another service in the afternoon, and then sometimes they invited some for a supper meal, and the pastor was always included in one of the meals. So.
Can you tell me about the church you went to while you were growing up?
Well, see, the church where I got confirmed in, that's where my parents went, where I went to confirmation school, and that was it was 10 miles east of Ashley, and that's where we went to Sunday school and studied the catechism and things like that. And I don't know if we were baptized in church. I don't remember that.
And did most people speak German in church?
Yeah, yeah. It's always German services. Yeah. Then when I was 16, my parents moved out to that other farm. Then I went to the same church as Harold went.
When you were growing up, what were seating arrangements like in church?
Yeah, well, the men sat on one side and the women on one side, and the children sat up front. We sat up front more so. That was kind of weird, the kids in front, that they could see what they were doing.
Were you allowed to question religious teaching when you were growing up?
Not really, no. They were strict.
Did your parents restrict things because of your religion?
No, not really, but they never went to another church service. They just did our own, you know.
Did you ever have any activities through the church that you took part in when you were younger?
Yeah, well, it's just the mission fest and the confirmation, and that's about all that I can remember. You know, we were always, it was always country churches, and we didn't always have the pastor every Sunday. The pastor had to take turns. They had 4 churches, so then they had reading service on the Sunday when the pastor wasn't there.
Can you describe a reading service?
Yeah, well, that was like you sang your songs, and then he read the sermon out of a book. You know, that was kind of like what did they call that? Well, a reading book with kind of like sermons, but he was reading them, and then you did the rest in the songs, and that was a deacon that did that then.
Right. Is there anything else you remember about church when you were growing up?
Well, it was always interesting because we got to go out that morning. Then we sat with some of our youth, you know, that were our age. We could sit with them. We visited a little bit with them.
Did you celebrate any other religious holidays like Ascension Day?
Yeah, Ascension Day, and then, well, Good Friday, and even Maundy Thursday they had church sometimes. And then Easter Monday. So that, you know, that was always, you always went to church, you know, and some of that. Most of them, yeah. My folks never stayed home much. They always attended, most of them.
So religion was very important to your family?
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did your parents restrict anything because of religion?
Well, we weren't supposed to cut on Sundays. You'd not use a scissor, and not sew on Sundays. That's about all I think of that is restricted.
Were you allowed to go to dances?
Yeah. Later, they were growing up. They danced too.
Okay. Is there anything else you remember about religion when you were growing up?
Well, we always had to study our lessons in the evenings, Saturday evenings, you know, and so get ready for Sunday. And always attended church, and otherwise they wouldn't restrict us too much with.
All right. Well then, let's move and talk just a little bit about daily life for you while you were growing up. Can you tell me about baths?
Oh yeah, we had this wash tub, you know, like this round wash tub, and then he, you know, heated the water and poured it in there, and then we all took baths in the same water. That's funny now.
Who went first?
I think the younger ones got to go first.
Did your family make their own soap for baths?
Yeah, not for baths, I don't think, but for washing they made their own soap. Yeah.
Do you remember how they made it?
Yeah, out of lard, you know, and or grease or whatever, and then they put that lye in. And when my mother did it outside, we couldn't be around with that because that was too strong. And they mixed that up and that's how she made the soap for washing.
All right. How often did you take baths?
Well, in the winter time it's just once a week, but during the summer we took it more often. I don't know if we took it every night. No, I don't think so. But when we were worked outside, you know, that it was so warm, then we took baths. Yeah.
How did you heat the water for baths?
Well, on the stove, like kerosene stove, you put a kettle on and heated it up. And then sometimes if we had a barrel outside where the rainwater would come in, that was just warm from the sun. We'd use some of that sometimes.
Okay. How often did you brush your teeth when you were growing up?
Once a day, I think that's all.
And what did you use to brush your teeth?
soda or salt. I think my dad always said you can use salt too, but we used soda. They didn't buy toothpaste.
Okay. You mentioned that you liked working in the garden.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us about some of the things that you grew in the garden?
Oh yeah, well, we'd like radishes, lettuce, onions, beets and carrots, and garlic, cucumbers, and watermelon, and even muskmelon sometimes. Corn, potatoes, yeah. We still grow a lot of that here.
Did you have a favorite thing out of the garden?
Yeah, carrots, I think, and radishes. Mm-hmm. Well, we grew cabbage too. Mm-hmm.
Who usually prepared the food in your family?
Mostly my mother, but then when we got older, then my sister helped more. I had help outside more. So she got to be a better cook than I was.
Okay. Where did you store food to keep it cool during the summer?
Well, with the cellar, that's about all we had. And then they had in the well, they had it arranged so if you wanted whipped cream, they put it in a jar and they hung it in the well to keep it cold, so you had to have whipped cream. So that was, and then even some of the meat sometimes, if they butchered something in the summer, they would hang it in the well to keep it cold. The wells weren't that deep.
Okay. Would your family sit at a table together when they ate?
Yeah, always. Mm-hmm.
Did you have assigned seats?
I think so, yeah. Mm-hmm. We had to set the tables as kids, and then Dad had a special seat, and then we always prayed before we started meal.
Did you say a prayer together, or did
Yeah.
one?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the prayer?
Yeah, my dad would say, yeah, he said that one, and then we had the other, I could start it. Kom Herr Jesus, sei unser Gast und segne uns alles, was du uns beschert hast. And then we kids sometimes said, aber lieber Vater. That I can't finish that one now.
Right. Were you allowed to talk during the meal?
Yeah, but not sometimes my dad she shut us up, but we talked too much, but we were allowed to talk.
What kinds of foods did you eat while you were growing up?
Oh, all kinds. Knäpfle, sauerkraut, strudels, cheese buttons, and then meat, like the meat for sausage and hamburgers and bone meat. They made bone meat a lot. And all the chickens, you always had chickens. And Saturdays you would butcher a chicken, and my mother would make a few noodles, and we always had noodle soup on Sundays. That was a treat.
Was there a reason for having noodle soup on Sundays?
That was just custom.
Okay.
And then we made cello for Sunday too, but no fruit in it, just cello. And then we made whipped cream for on top.
Yeah. Where did you get Jello, or how did you make it?
The cello, you bought it in the store, like now. Mm-hmm.
All right. Is there anything else you remember about food when you were growing up?
Well, there was they would, at the hams, they would cure them themselves when they butchered in the fall, and then, you'd have ham and bacon, you'd have all your own, and that was used up then during the winter. And in the summer you didn't have it anymore because it couldn't keep it. And then, well, my mother would can some meat too that you could have some this summer. Yeah, we had a bunch of geese, my folks too. Then we'd butcher them, and she'd can some of that too. And that was always helping out when you didn't have something on hand that was too warm.
Okay. Can you tell me what kind of clothes were common when you were growing up?
Well, the girls always got dresses, and we got dresses for like for church. I don't think they ever wore slacks. And so my mother did too. But you just saved your if you had a dress, a better one that was saved for church, you didn't wear it for anything else. And then, like you had pants too. I don't know if they were jeans or not. I can't remember. But for school, you wore a lot of times you wore pants. And it was cold, you know.
How often did you get new clothes?
Well, like for Easter and Christmas, that was only dress clothes. Otherwise, even for school, when you went to school, you didn't have an outfit for every day. You had it on for 2-3 days, you know, an outfit until you changed. You had sweaters too, and.
Okay. How about shoes? How often did you get new shoes?
Well, when they were worn out, you got a pair. Yeah. Well, you had some Sunday shoes too that were just for Sunday, you know. But and I can't even remember now if they had heels, you couldn't wear them for every day, you know. But you just had dress shoes, but they were cheap shoes still.
Okay. Did anyone in your family sew or embroider or quilt?
Yeah. Well, no, my mother sewed some. You know, she even made some slips for us and even underwear, I think, and night clothes. So, but she didn't make no dresses or anything, you know.
Okay.
She taught us how to embroider, but she never had time. She never took time to do that till she was older. When they lived in town, then she did.
All right. Is there anything else you remember about clothing when you were growing up?
Yeah, well, that one I remember, that we always had to save them for Sunday, the better ones, you know, and couldn't wear them for school. And that was kind of in me. Then when our daughter was going to school, then she always wanted to wear good clothes, and I wouldn't let her. And later on, I thought that was wrong, you know, but that's how we were brought up.
Okay. When did your family get electricity?
They didn't really get electric. They got a light plant, a 32 volt. I would say in 45 about. Then we had to get the iron that was made for 32 volt and a washing machine and stuff like that. That was nice. Yeah, and a separator I think we got too.
Did it change your life?
Yeah. Yeah. That was different.
Okay. Do you remember your family getting its first car or truck?
No, I don't remember that. I think he had cars already by the time we. No, if we were born. That I don't know when he first started get a car.
Okay. Do you remember when your family got a telephone?
I don't think they got a telephone. I think we were married already. Then we had a telephone. They still didn't have one. Yeah, but I don't remember when they got it.
Okay. Well, when you were married, how did having the telephone change your life?
Well, we had a party line, so we could, you know, call different people. That was sometimes busy. We had 17 people on our party line, and so that made a difference, you know. We could call when we wanted to, you know, but not everybody had the phone yet then, so couldn't call everybody. So.
Okay. Did your family have a radio?
Yeah, we had a radio. I'm not sure. When we were going to school already, then we had a radio, a battery operated, you know. And then sometimes the battery was low already. Dad hadn't replaced it, and we had to go up real close to listen. It was the South Dakota Kid was always on in the morning before we went to school, and I can still remember I would go real close up to the radio to listen to it.
What were some of the other programs you listened to on the radio?
Well, there's Ma Perkins and what were they all? Those were stories that were on the afternoon, you know. In the evening, I don't remember if we could watch. We always had to go to schoolwork.
Okay. Right. Then we're going to ask you some general questions about your childhood. What was your most stressful childhood memory?
Well, I guess when we had to do some chores or something that we didn't like, that was stressful.
Do you remember anything in particular?
Yeah, well, we had to go out in the field, and I wasn't really that old yet. We had to, you know, do with the horses, lead the horses with a drag or something, and that was kind of stressful. That was hard to accept. And then even when they were harvesting, I had to go on the header box and put the grain, haul it away, and that was hard. I wasn't that old yet. It was hard. Mm-hmm.
How often did you have to help in the fields?
Well, as long as there was, you know, when my mother, sometimes she wanted to stay home to do something, and then I had to take her place. And then sometimes when she could go out, then I could stay home too. Mm-hmm.
Okay. What was your happiest childhood memory?
Well, when I could pick the eggs and go and look for eggs for the turkeys, the little turkeys that like to, and the little chickens, I was always.
Did you ever treat them like pets?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. Mm-hmm. We'd have a brother house, you know, where it was nice and warm in there. You could be in there and play with them. And then we had kittens too, you know, that were pets. But we could never have them in the house, though.
Did you have a favorite one that you felt like was your special pet?
No, I didn't. I wasn't that close to. Just we played with them in the barn and fed them. And
okay. Well, what was the most adventurous thing you did as a child?
Well, that's a hard one. What do you mean adventurous by?
Anything that you felt like you were really doing something sort of maybe dangerous or exciting?
Mm-hmm. Well, dangerous is sometimes around the cattle. That was kind of dangerous. We had to help around out the cattle sometimes. That would have been kind of dangerous that I was scared for and didn't like it.
Okay. Is there anything else about your childhood that you'd like to share with us?
Well, we always, you know, my mother was a good cook, always enjoyed the cooking, you know. We always were glad to eat what was put in front of us. And
is there anything else?
Yeah, and when we would go and visit our cousins, you know, when they would, then we got to play with them. And there, of course, we had a lot of cousins. So.
Now, did your family celebrate birthday parties?
Not that much. Maybe we were once in a great while we were invited someplace for a birthday, but not a big party, you know. So.
Okay. Are there any other childhood memories you'd like to share with us?
Well, I guess we went through most of them, I guess. Can't think of any right now.
All right. Then why do you think it's important to tell your life story?
Why I think it's important? Well, for the generation coming after us, they might be interested. Right now, they're not that interested, but they might be. Like our children you know, they're a little bit interested, especially our youngest one, the one that's an embryologist. And, he likes to look at the pictures from the grandparents and stuff and what they were doing. And
Okay. Are there any other thoughts or observations you'd like to share with us?
well, there's one like that was when our kids were growing up already. You know, when I cooked something, it was always all eaten up. There was nothing left. And yeah, but sometimes when Dad would get a different car, that was exciting too. You know, that when we were growing up.
Can you tell me a little bit about a time when he got a new car?
No, he never bought a new car. He never had the money. He would buy those old Model Ts, I think, and I can't remember how he was always a trader. He liked to trade cattle and things, and so that's how he got him.
All right. Are there any other thoughts you'd like to share with us?
Well, there was one thought that just came to me now. There would be, see, because my dad was kind of a trader, there would be horse chuggers. They'd come around with horses. Then they would trade horses with my dad. And my mother always had a meal ready. You know, she didn't know they were coming, but there was always enough there that she would feed them guys, 2 or 3 of them sometimes. They would eat lunch with us then.
Okay. Are there any other memories?
All right, offhand, I can't think of any more.
All right. Well, thank you so much for doing this with us.
Yeah, you're welcome.